This is Connections. From class to career, join us as we explore the interconnection between life, learning, and work. We're your hosts, Mark Andrade and Michael Spencer, recording from Humber, Polytechnic.
We're in Humber's gym because our guest today works in the sports marketing industry. Mohamed Hassan is the manager of player marketing for the CFL and a professor in the sports management program at Humber. He's also the co-founder and executive director of Somali Together, an organization dedicated to uplifting Somali communities through sport and education.
In our conversation, Mohamed shares his unique journey and how paying attention to different pathways to success opened options for his own skills to shine. He also talks about the importance of working on things that matter to you and how that passion can make you a community and business leader. Let's have a listen to our chat with Mohamed.
So you're currently the manager of player marketing for the CFL. And full disclosure, I married into a Tiger Cats family. My wife's from Oskiwiwi.
Oskiwiwi fans. I love them to death. I love them, but I was born and raised in Toronto, so no bias. I work at the CFL, no bias. But off the record.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. But I was following along. Obviously, I watched the Grey Cup, and you were on the field in October, I think, when the Argos won the Grey Cup in Vancouver. Posed for photos with the trophy. So you made it, I guess.
Exactly.
I'm wondering, how did you get here? What was kind of
honestly
what was the journey like?
It's been a long one. Like from the macro, I've been in sports now almost 10 years, right? So it's been an accumulation of all these different experiences. I started at the collegiate level, working at Brock University in the athletic department. And from there, I did that for a few years. And then I was brave enough to start my own business, like doing sport marketing stuff back while I was still a student. We had some like early success of like doing marketing at Brock University. Me and a friend started kind of like doing all their marketing, and other universities started saying, hey, Brock, like, how are you engaging with students so well? And how are you selling out all these games and all these things? So me and my friend were like, yeah, this is an opportunity like to start a business. So we did that. And we worked at the collegiate level, provincial level. And then I think our first big client was like, U Sports was the governing body of university sports at the time. They heard about what we were doing. They were rebranding. I don't know how familiar you are with the sports space, but they used to be called the Canadian Intercollegiate something. I can't remember. Association. Had a really long name. They were doing a massive
CIA.
Rebrand. No, CIS. So Canadian Intercollegiate Sports. That's what it's called. CIS. Right. And they were making a big rebrand, and we got to work on the whole digital side of the rebrand. Like that was one of our first big clients, and from that, like we had a domino effect. We worked with Canada Basketball, we worked with Canada Games, we've worked with so many different cool sport organizations that we did that for about 5 years. But we were really young, I was still in university when I started this, and there's so much more for us to learn. That I'm like, let me go back into the industry. Like, let me go work for some of these big properties, learn from these senior VPs that have been doing this for 30 years, and learn a lot more. So that's what I did. So I went back, actually ended up working for U Sports. One of my clients ended up getting a job there leading their marketing team on that side. From there, I jumped around. I went from U Sports to Tennis Canada. So I did a few years at Tennis Canada and the National Bank Open, big tennis tournament here in Toronto. Did that for a few years, and then now I landed at the CFL. So it's been a crazy journey in sports, but it's really, really fun. It's taking me all around the world. It's taking me in so many different places. So all those experiences is what will make it successful at the Grey Cup. It'll make me survive a Grey Cup.
Right.
And a CFL season is all those 10 years of learning things and hosting national events and all these different experiences over the years.
Yeah, I think often too about my own kind of professional journey as well, and like the kind of accumulation of experiences, especially early on. You kind of like say yes to everything you kind of see, right? And
exactly.
I don't know if always in the moment you realize kind of how important that experience is, right?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't realize it in the moment, and I sometimes still don't realize it. Like I feel like I'm still in such a go mode, like of like still saying yes to so many things that I still like. I think this past holiday season, I actually try to do a bit more reflection of like all these different things, like that got me to this point, and understanding like how valuable that was, like I'm 20 years old and I'm just saying yes to everything, not on no sleep. I don't recommend it. I burnt out one too many times, right? Like I think there's a balance that you learn through experiencing it. But saying yes to all these different things is what, opens up new doors. It's what opens up your eyes to what's possible out there. Sometimes when you're, especially me being born in Toronto, right? Like we're in a bubble, right? Like, but the world, especially like in sports, like it's so vast, and I had to like experience it to know like it's not just what's going in Toronto. It's not just the Raptors, Jays, and Leafs. It's not just like what I think I know here, but there's so much more. So, trying to do a bit more reflection on all these experiences that got me here so far today.
It sounds like, in terms of just listening to your kind of story and like all the trajectory of all the things you did, even when you were younger, it seems like you're sort of were really highly motivated, or at least you had moments where you were kind of seeing opportunities and sort of jumping into them. You pushed and you did these extra things, talks. What do you think is behind that?
Like, I think it's twofold. Like, I think my parents are a big motivation and inspiration to me. Like, I'm Somali, my parents left a war-torn country as refugees and came to Canada in the early 90s. Right. So they came to Canada in 1991, no English, no money, no nothing. Right. And to see them be able to overcome that, put their kids through school, get their own home, like that in itself, like it's almost unfathomable. But to me, like I try to like sometimes reflect and like, I'm like, okay, like they went through way harder. Like they had to drop their whole life and start anew. So if like from a work ethic perspective, like if they can overcome that, like I'm almost like taking don't take it for granted how much they overcame, and now that I'm here and they were able to give me this opportunity to be here in Canada, make the most out of it. So that's like one facet of it, like I think that like as a kid like really like kept me going. But then on the flip side, like something else like in my young teenage years that really inspired me was I'm a big hip hop fan, artist, and one artist I don't know if you're familiar with, his name is J. Cole. And when I was in the 9th grade, so he was not a signed artist. He didn't even go by J. Cole at the time. Like he was like, really underground. Like I was super into the hip hop blogs and like, and following it all. And I came across his music and I became a huge fan. And then one day, I'll give you guys a quick 2-minute story. One day I'm on Twitter. Twitter just launched that year. Like it was like brand new. And I saw someone made an account on Twitter and it was called Dreamville Fans. And Dreamville was like what J. Cole and his friends like would call themselves back then. They were like a collective of guys and like they're all artists and whatever. And I saw this account. I had like no followers, but I'm such a big hip hop fan. I followed them and I just sent them a DM. And I said, hey, like I'm a big J. Cole fan. Like if you guys ever need anything, like let me know. I'd love to help. Again, like just me just putting things out there.
Yeah.
This random account responds back to me. It's like, oh, thank you so much. Like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Toronto. And they're like, what? I'm from Toronto too. Like, I'm just talking to like a ghost profile. Like, I don't know who this is. They're like, let's meet up. Don't recommend this. Don't do this as a 14-year-old. So, we met up at a local coffee shop, and he told me, he's like, oh, like here's my personal account. He was like a year older than me. He was in the 10th grade. I was in the 9th grade. And we became just fans over that, and we started growing this fan page. So we started growing this fan page up until the point J. Cole's manager noticed and like would reach out to us and like send us stuff to like give away for fans and all these things. And like I'm like, again, seeing J. Cole's evolution as this is all happening, this grade 9, grade 10. And then I think when I was in the 11th grade, we actually had more followers than them on social media. Like we were like, growing it, like, and they offered us internships while we were still in high school. And again, like just, I say that all to say is like, I saw J. Cole go from 50 people at a show to selling Madison Square Garden. Like I've witnessed, and I got to work with him throughout that
trajectory.
Journey.
You saw that growth. Yeah,
exactly. And like I met him at a young age and seeing like he was 18 and moved out of his house to chase his dreams in New York. And his mom was back in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And his story was really inspiring to me. I'm like, honestly, that's the reason I moved out for university. I'm like, I'm going to move out and chase my dreams and, and all these different things. So seeing him do that up close and personal from, he had a very tough childhood and, upbringing in North Carolina and, and dealt with a lot of things. To see what he did, I'm like, if he could do it, I could do it too. And I think that's one big thing that like I recommend to anybody is like finding someone that looks like you, similar lived experiences as you, like going through it, makes it like possible for me. So when I was actually in my first year of university, we were working at Brock University, starting the athletic staff before we started our business. And I was on his tour, and we were in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was one of his biggest albums, and it was a tour in his hometown city that never has concerts because it's so small. And he brought all the biggest stars, Jay-Z, Drake, like everybody was there.
Right.
And I was sitting there in like the second row, and his mom was beside me, like in tears, like the whole time.
Wow.
Because that's just, so when I saw that, I'm like, I want my mom to cry like that. Like, I want to, and I knew that like at that moment, I came back to Toronto a week later, and I was like, I need to do something on my own. I spent the last 5-6 years working with them, doing all the social media, digital stuff. And it's like, I'm helping him build his dream, which is great and valuable experience. But what's my dream? I started questioning that.
I think when we're young, we obviously especially have like people that we're like huge fans of. And I think it's easy to look back and kind of like dismiss that as like, you're just like a silly young person who's obsessed with J. Cole or whoever it might be, right? But when you think about it, right, like there's learning that can happen there, and there's value in like those hobbies and those experiences and those kind of mentors as well, right? And obviously
exactly.
kind of you saw that,
like and I think like that's like you said it really well. Like if people like can now actually understand like your hobbies and your passions like are all experiences for life, like it's not just like even like video games or something that like, you know, people like we think is just an idle task or just like a mindless thing, you know. I'm just playing FIFA, but like no, like this like experience, like play FIFA with a team of people and like working on your teamwork skills, like, you know, like it's superficial to say, but like there's actually like benefits to finding learnings through all your passions, you know, and in whatever it may be.
You kind of switch gears a bit. I know kind of following you a bit online and LinkedIn and kind of social media, I can see that kind of building a kind of personal brand has also been important to you, or at least it seems anyways, kind of professionally and personally. Why do you think it's important to kind of market and brand yourself, and how do you do that kind of authentically?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's super important. Like, I think that like if you don't tell your story, nobody will, first and foremost, right? Like, yes, people might advocate for you or be referrals for you, you know, I might be applying for a job and yes, I might get a reference letter from my previous employer, but you can tell your story the best, you know? I think that is tried and true thing in anything, whether it's marketing, whether it's like for example, like I'm digressing, but I'll come back to the point. But like at Brock University, I think the reason we were so successful in our marketing there because we were students. Like I'm talking to myself, right? So you can tell your story better. So if I can tell a story of a student, then students are going to connect to it, right? So if I'm telling a story of my sport marketing journey on social media, it's because I want to further open up doors and, you know, and things of that nature within the sport. But if nobody knows about it and I'm just a private page on Instagram, like nobody will know, right? So the whole idea of like closed mouths don't get fed, like I'm a firm believer in that. Or it might be a little harsh and maybe you want to cut this out, but like me and my friends growing up, we used to like say, if you're shy, you die. Like, you know, like in like life, you know, and maybe that's a bit extreme, but like, you know, like that ethos of like you have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. I was not a big fan of being on camera, you know. For a lot of time I was working behind the camera, working behind, you know, the scenes, creating these marketing campaigns, and other people are in front of the camera. But I told myself, I can't remember when, but I'm like, I need to change it, and put myself forward. I got comfortable being online, you know, being vulnerable with my words, and then from there it opened up. Now telling my story is important of who I am. And then your other part of the question about like how do you do it authentically, it's just like, don't think you need to do what you think people want to hear. Like, you know, people, we're always consuming media. We're always thinking, oh, like this is what does well on social media. If you take that approach, one, you're going to lack, what's the word I'm looking for? You're going to lack the passion behind it because you feel like you're just doing it just to fill a persona that you think people want to hear. But like, if you actually just take the time of like sharing who you are, like, and like the ups and downs, and like everything doesn't need to be perfect, like, you know, and taking that expectation off yourself, I actually see engagement increasing on social media. I actually see people wanting to comment more versus what I think, you know, what I used to do back in the day of like, oh, I think this is what people want. I think it's just, trying to understand what your comfortability is online of like how much you want to share. Because I think that's also a big piece that I'm learning as of now with a family, with a toddler. How much do you want to really put out there online? But when you find that balance between what you're willing to share, just share it authentically. You know?
From the CFL to Somali together, we've talked a little bit about it already, but sports is a common thread throughout a lot of your work. In your opinion, what is the importance of sports?
Like, I think it's like, it's a language, it's a universal language. Like, if I have to put it in simple terms, like it's something that everybody can connect to. Being an athlete, being a fan, being a spectator, or anything, like, or if you just like music in the halftime of the Super Bowl, right? Like it's something that like touches so many people, and the fact that it can bring everybody together, like, is really what makes it fun for me. Like when I was working in music, I used to my favorite part of like what I was doing with J. Cole and them was like the fan experience, bringing fans together. That's very transferable into sports. Like I think that's why that transition for me was very easy. Going from working in the fan experience music industry side of things to working in sports, because my goal is to bring people around a common person, thing, place, and have a great time. So I think that's what it is about me. It's one of the few things that from a childhood you can carry throughout the rest of your life. Like there's not many things that like, it's very childlike. It makes me feel like, I think the dopamine that we got as a kid playing sports, like can be brought out in adulthood, can be brought out in so many different places, that I think that is the special thing to me about it. Is the stories also around it. Like it's so like it's so vast, I think, but if I put it
so
like,
many elements,
like
right?
so many elements, but like I think for me it's like just bringing people together. Like I say that all the time. Like I love to bring communities together through sport. Like that is like the thing that I care about the most, is how can I do that, whether it's through my nonprofit in Somali Together, and it's a catalyst. Like we started with sports, but like we do so much more now with Somali Together, right? Like it's not like it's actually not even the priority anymore. Like it's actually like one of the least like things we focus on as a nonprofit organization anymore, but it was what brought us into our community to get them engaged, to start off.
There was a quote here that we included. It says Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, asks in his memoir Shoe Dog, quote, what if there were a way, without being an athlete, to feel what athletes feel, to play all the time instead of working? You seem to be doing this, kind of sportifying your work. I guess, what does this mean to you, and why do you think it's important, quote like this?
I love that quote. I read Shoe Dog so many times, also, side note, everybody go read that book if you sports or not sports. It's like the story is just amazing. But like that quote, like what it could be to feel like being an athlete without being an athlete speaks a lot to me. Like I loved playing sports growing up. Like I played all sports. I played soccer. I played basketball. I played ultimate frisbee. Like I played anything that you could give me growing up. But now in my career, when I think about it, it's like, okay, I work in sports, because I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not that my genetics didn't bless me that well. But I found my way into sports somehow, and I found my way into doing something that I love. But the work ethic that it takes to be an athlete, to be a student athlete, even, like it's hard balancing curriculum and, and practice and competitions and training and your diet and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I really have a lot of respect for an athlete's regimen, an athlete's, mentality, and athlete's, work ethic, et cetera. So when I now work in sports, I work around these guys that are athletes, like especially in player marketing. Like I'm dealing with these players every day, right? I need 5 minutes to talk to them. I have to talk to them in between workouts. Like it's like I see it every day, right? So when I'm with them, I get the same drive. Like their goal is the Grey Cup to win it. My goal is to have the most amazing Grey Cup, and we're working in tandem, like they're practicing, I'm practicing. Like they're in the gym, I'm in the gym, right? Like it's different.
It's inspiring. It seems inspiring. Yeah, to see them like
every day. Like literally, it's super inspiring, right? And when I'm with them, like I get that, like I feel like I'm in the locker room. Like I feel like I'm with them. Having like that drive from sports into your career is huge. Like Phil Knight, like in that book, like he was a runner, and he would talk about how running was like a business journey, and like he, and things of that nature. So that's really been big for me. And I remember even being like in Grey Cup, I was sitting down with some players at breakfast, and it was really in the morning, 7 a.m. But like I'm working. I actually invited some players to do some marketing stuff. They were not in the Grey Cup game, but I brought a handful out to do a bunch of different content. So they're having a great time. working, like 12, 13, 14, 16 hours a day. And they're like, Mo, you better be in the gym 6 a.m, like at the hotel. And like, I'm like, I'll see you there. Right. Like, like, and the fact that we can do that to each other and then go to the gym at 6 a.m. Now we're sitting down at breakfast at 7 and they're talking about their goals and what are they going to do in their off season to just be 1% better. Right. Like these guys are elite athletes. Right.
Yeah.
And they're just thinking of those, only if I could just move a little bit faster, or if I could just do this a little bit better, right? And like that way of thinking really is like, if you can put that into your career, like you'll see how you can grow exponentially.
Somali Together's come up a few times, Mohamed, which we know you're involved with and are co-founder of. It's a Toronto-based not-for-profit organization that aims to improve the lives of Somali youth through community-based programming. I'm wondering if you could explain a bit about Somali Together and the work it's doing.
Definitely, yeah. So thank you for the bit of the intro for it. But so our whole goal, aside from our nice mission statement, is really just to develop young leaders within our community. Like that's our end goal. We have programs that start as young as 8 up until 25. We have 3 core programs, and each step of the program, it's really, again, to develop youth leaders and give them the skills. And I think I said this earlier in the conversation of like showing people that look like them doing amazing things. So a lot of when we bring in workshop facilitators are people from Somali backgrounds or similar lived experiences, that can relate, to what they've, been through. We've had everybody from writers from like the Toronto Star come in, run a workshop, to people that work in business and tech and science and so many different industries we've reached in. And again, it's to let them know it's possible. Not to only let them know it's possible, but give them the tools and resources to understand that anything's possible if they put the work in, right? So like, I'll just give you a quick snapshot. So we have our 8 to 13-year-old program. We call it Next Up, and it's really, again, it's a fun environment. It's a Saturday afternoon program where parents can drop off their kids, and and the programming is really geared towards a younger demographic. But we integrate like learning teamwork and leadership and all these different facets, through a kids program. Then we have a high school program from 14 to 18 where our whole focus is to show them what's out there in the world. We take them to different excursions, different industries, different experiences, before they get to that place of like, oh, I'm graduating high school and what's out there in the world. We're trying to show them what's out there in the world while they're still in high school. And the unique part about all our programs is there's some sort of leadership component to it. So the high school kids actually all run the Next Up program. So they take different weeks to run it. And, they're the ones actually facilitating the kids program and volunteering. Not only are they getting their volunteer hours, but now they're learning the skills of like how to run a program and how to do something, themselves. And then we have our 18 to 25-year-old program where now they've been through a program or they've joined our program, and they have to do something called the Youth for Community Initiative, where we actually give them a micro grant to run their own community initiative. So they spend a few months to identify what their community needs, and work in groups of 5 to 6 and actually develop a 6-week program for their community. And the goal is not just to let them do this and it's done, but after the program is done, which ones can we further invest in, or which ones are sustainable, which ones can be scalable. So the whole thing is, again, like showing them like anything's possible, giving them the tools and resources to do it. And it started with sports. I talked about that earlier, we started by running sport programming, but it's now fully transformed, and, now our 18 plus group runs a sports program for our community, right? Like it's like the whole dynamic has changed, so it's been great. We're in our 3rd year now as a nonprofit. So it's been an amazing journey so far.
Yeah, it sounds like some incredible work you're doing. I know that, and I think this kind of came up in some of what you're saying there, like the idea of togetherness is a recurring theme in a lot of the Somali Together material. It's even in the name. I wonder if you could talk a bit about the kind of importance of togetherness in general, or just specifically to kind of Somali youth, maybe.
Yeah, like there's 2 facets of it for me. One, togetherness. I think when people understand that if you could work together, you could go further, like I think that old quote, like, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, like go together. Like I really believe in that. And I really believe that like anything we need to do as a community, we need to do together. There's been a bit of like, to give you a little context, like when our parents came here as refugees in the 90s, a lot of their children that were like 10 years old at the time, they're probably like now in their 40s, and they have a lot of great, like, great careers. A lot of them work in government, a lot of them work in so many different amazing fields, but there's a bit of a gap in our community between those individuals and the younger generation. We don't know who these people are. They're not on social media the way we're on social media. They're not in, promoting themselves, but they're doing amazing things. So there's a bit of a gap in that regard. So I'm trying to break these barriers down and like bring these industry professionals to our youth, to show them what they went through, to understand, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be, physicist, you could be whatever you think. And there's people that look like you that are doing it. So I'm trying to like
Absolutely.
bring everybody together so they can see that. So there's that one side of it. And then there's another side of it where there's a lot of division within the Somali community when it comes to neighborhood politics and, Toronto violence and all these other issues, within the city of Toronto that we're also trying to mend. So our youth come from all across the GTA, every neighborhood of the GTA. And a lot of these issues that I see in later teen years, we're trying to rectify by getting these kids together at a younger age. And hopefully that, we can build these relationships before anything gets even further, any further division happens. Like, let's try to amend this. So we do a lot of stuff. Like we have like 300 kids in our program across our different programs, but we run events all year round. Like I think we reach over like 3,000-4,000 people we touch, in a single year from our community. So it's been pretty cool, but again, that idea of togetherness is important. Our older kids help the younger kids. The people that graduated from our program, alumni, they come back and they volunteer, their time. So it's like, that's something that we really are trying to hold dear to us.
One of the areas that we wanted to cover in our show and is, all sorts of different skills from collaboration to teamwork. And I think we touched on, a lot of those aspects, but one aspect that I think we could really, learn a bit more about is leadership. So as a community and industry leader, what does leadership mean to you? And, what do you think good leadership looks like?
Yeah, definitely. I think good leadership, or leadership in general, like looks to me is like you have to lead by example. I'm a firm believer in that. Like a leader that sits in their ivory tower and tells people what to do is not a leader to me. It's really just rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty, inspiring people, being there from an emotional perspective, a mental perspective. Like I think like my team, wherever I work as the CFL or previous roles, it's like, yes, we have goals and yes, we have deliverables and yes, we have metrics we need to reach. But like, how are you doing as an individual, right? Like understanding the person first will help you reach your goals better, right? Like spending the time to get to know people, spending the time to understand their needs, and how to be the best version of themselves is important. Two anecdotes from my experiences. Like my first job in high school was at Canada's Wonderland as a 16-year-old, and the president of Canada's Wonderland at the time, I don't know if he still is, every morning would walk around and pick up garbage every morning. President of Canada's Wonderland. He started at Wonderland 30 years prior as a custodial job, like like sweeping and stuff. So to see him, very successful, multimillionaire, individual, every morning would walk around, say hi, look everybody in the eye, say hi as he walked around the park if he saw you, and if he sees a piece of garbage in his nice fancy suit, would go bend over, pick up the garbage and put it in a trash can. Seeing that every day as a kid, like, does something to you, So that's one piece of it that really stuck with me, from my life growing up is that piece. I had another anecdote, but it slipped my mind. But that's like that one, like leadership by example is huge. Here's the other one. I saw about this in a book, I think, or I read about it in the book, where an individual would always come 15 minutes late to work, and his manager was like getting upset about it. But the manager didn't say anything for a couple months, but would just track it, and notice that this person's always showing up 15, 20 minutes late to work. To come and find out that the father has to always drop off their kid to daycare, and that's the reason why they're coming always a little bit late. And he noticed as these 2 months of him always coming late, that his performance is also declining. So he had a chart. It's like lates are increasing, performance is decreasing.
Yeah, right.
He ended up saying, hey, listen, like take an extra 30 minutes in the morning and come in at 8:30 instead of 8. So you don't feel like that franticness of trying to drop your kid off and come in. And then he noticed over the next couple months that his lights disappeared, his performance, increased, right? So now as a leader, he took the time to understand what was their issue and adjust accordingly is a huge thing. Being able to help like clear barriers is something that like I repeat all the time as a leader. Like that's your job, like you're the firefighter. You got to clean up the mess for the team. You got to foresee what the roadblocks might potentially be, and try to clear before they get there, right? And if you can't, be sure that you're there to help them clear the way as well.
Zooming out a little bit and saying, okay, well, if we can remove this barrier, if we can problem solve in this way, we can help which at the end, productivity is important in business, but it also supported that human element, that emotional side, that person now feels like, okay, I have more time to spend with my kid, even if it's just half an hour. I don't feel the stress, and it has a kind of domino effect or cascading effect of like, okay, this is that worker feels more seen. The person who was leading, problem solved and used kind of these approaches to kind of fix or help, facilitate the problem. So it's really neat anecdote. I love that. Using emojis in professional communication, overrated or underrated?
Oh man, that's a good one. Overrated or underrated? I think, okay, you know how in Outlook you could put emojis now to react to an email? Yeah. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that.
You don't like the emojis in email?
I don't like the emojis in email. But like we talk on Slack at work, and like we use emojis all the time, GIFs all the time. So underrated, use it more.
Having a social media presence for your career.
Overrated. Underrated. Like that, underrated means doing more. You need to do it more. I think everybody that doesn't matter what field you're in, like I think having a social media presence is opportunity to tell your story and opportunity, honestly, to side revenue. Like it's a good side hustle. And there's a niche for everything in this world. So you can find your audience and monetize it down the line.
Canadian football versus American football, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. Canadian football is a hidden gem, in my opinion. Like growing up, like I was never a big football guy in general. Like I played soccer my whole life and things of that nature. But experiencing what I've experienced this past season, it's a big deal here in Canada. It's unique. I've been to NFL games. I've been to CFL games. They're completely different vibes. So underrated. People need to know who these guys are. They're extremely talented athletes. They're the best of the best in the sport. So underrated. People go check it out. Season kickoff June something. I'll check the dates. But
shout out to Canadian football.
Yeah.
Learning from failure, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. Learning from failure. We talked about it earlier, but like fail fast, learn fast. Keep it going in life, and don't be too hung up on failures. I've had my fair share of big losses, and they come and go. So let's just keep moving forward.
Working from home, underrated or overrated?
I don't know if my friends are gonna not like me for this one, but I think it's overrated now. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Obviously, it's great flexibility, especially with a toddler. During my lunch break, I can pop out, help my wife, and do whatever. But I miss people. We talk about togetherness a lot. I like going to the office. I understand why people like it. I understand why people prefer it sometimes. But I go to the office like once a week. I go to Humber once a week. Like those are my favorite days sometimes. Just getting out. Seeing different people and having conversations.
Well, Mohamed, I think that brings us to the end. Thank you so much. That was a
pleasure.
A very insightful conversation. I have no doubt that students and everyone will gain lots from listening to.
I hope so. And if I don't know when you guys share this, to share my contact information, I'm more than happy, to always reach out to students and connect with students. I'm always putting it out there. And some students are shy, but don't be shy. Reach out.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Reach out. And then, definitely. Like, it was funny. Like, I did a workshop years ago, and a student just DM'd me yesterday saying, like, hey, like, you came into the workshop, I think it was like 4 years ago at my high school, and I just wanted to let you know I'm currently in marketing. Like, and I love, like stuff like that goes a long way. So please reach out. More than happy to share whatever I know or any introductions or connections I can give.
Awesome. We will. Yeah, we'll mention that. Thanks again, Mohamed.
Amazing. Thank you, gentlemen.